Greeting, boils and ghouls. Halloween is right around the corner, and today's guest artwork seems like a perfect fit for celebrating the most wonderful time of the year. With over 172 artworks to his name, I am proud to introduce the one, the only, Eric Deschamps. Okay, well, thank you for taking the time to talk to me today.
No problem.
Now, I wanted to know, so you got your start out working with NBC in the beginning of your career, correct?
Yes.
What did you do there?
What's that?
What did you do at NBC?
I was a broadcast designer. So it was basically graphic design with motion involved. So it's like when the bumpers that come before a show and, after the commercial and little intros to like nightly news and I did the Today Show and a bunch of sports stuff. So yeah, actually, if you look, you can see a little above my head. It's NBC and NBA and NBC. It was like this little banner they had me make. So after it was used on one of the NBA games, they gave it to me. So I thought it was pretty cool.
That's awesome. So they print them out too sometimes do that just because you were?
Well, I was like a graphic designer there basically. So they needed a sign to put, by the announcers table. So, it's NBA and NBC, so it'd be underneath Marv Albert and whoever else, So it was kind of cool to have it on camera. It was something that I worked on, so it was kind of neat.
And at what time? What time was this? What year was it when you were working on these bumpers? What time?
I left 2000.
Okay, and so you started when?
So 1997, right when I graduated college, around like 1997.
Wow, that was like the height of NBC. Like there was like all that must-see TV was happening, and
yeah, it started going downhill as soon as I left. So I got out of this right.
And the lesson learned, NBC. So then you sort of decided that you were going to switch. You had always wanted to do like creature art. You were always like interested in like the NIM movies and that kind of stuff. What made you take the jump that made you just take that leap? Because it seems like a striking career jump to go from doing that kind of work to creature design or illustration.
I think I enjoyed what I was doing, but it was something where, I just knew like drawing and painting cool creatures is kind of what I wanted to do. And I felt like it's something that I could keep getting better at, where I felt like, obviously the graphic design, you can keep getting better, but I just felt like it was going to be a little bit more monotonous over time. So, I don't know, it was just something I always wanted to do. And I actually went to school thinking I'd be an illustrator, but then kind of changed over to graphic design. So I don't know, something I always wanted to do, so I just went for it, and I ended up moving somewhere where it's cheaper to live, so I could, work on my portfolio and all that, and it worked out. So.
And your very first paid illustration job was for Magic the Gathering, correct?
Yes. So I don't know if I knew too much about Magic at the time, and I just went to the San Diego Comic-Con, and I set up an interview there they had in-person interviews with Jeremy Cranford, and basically went ahead and showed him my work. And well, actually before that, I had been emailing him a couple times, and that he seemed interested in my work, but he never gave me anything. So then meeting in person was, I guess, maybe he felt that, he trusted that I would get things done on time, because you never know. People can have great work, but, aren't going to hand it in, be, a flake. So, maybe he felt a little more comfortable after meeting me in person.
Right. Got a sort of sense of that, like, okay, this person doesn't look like they're, barely on the planet, about to float into space. You look pretty grounded.
Exactly. Yeah. So yeah, I got my first job with Magic, and it was doing the Unhinged set, which was fun because it was just, aside from being fun, it was just made a lot of sense for me because it wasn't something to be as nervous about, because it was very, humorous and, lighthearted. So it was a good start.
Yeah, the Goblin, and I think you have to say SWAT, right? Because that's the rule. Like you can't say SWAT, I believe.
Oh, I didn't know that. Yeah, it does have the periods in between, so.
Yeah, because it's like you have to do like you have to say goblin SWAT and before, and if somebody swats, apparently you don't get a +1/+1, which it seems fun. I've never played with that card before, but what's kind of interesting about it though is while it is a lighter set, that those goblins are very much I mean they could work as a proper set goblin, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Cool. Yeah.
And
No, I mean, go ahead.
oh, I mean, and so I mean, do you think that was that conscious, or did you do them like goofier than you would have?
Um, it had it been a normal set, I'm sure I wouldn't have had as silly of a grin on their face and things like that. But yeah, I mean, just the idea that it has like these fly swatters, I don't think there's any way for you not to make it a little bit goofy.
Right, right. I mean, but I still think that they're menacing looking though. I mean, like you definitely, I can see why then they took you on for the regular set. So what was the first card that you got as doing the traditional sets for Magic?
Yeah, well, this is when I started. So I did 2 cards for that unhinged set, and then 1 card after that, which was a core set card. And
Mhm.
then there was a break. There's maybe like 4 or 5 years where I didn't do any work for Magic
Really?
because that art director that brought me in, he left. He went over to World of Warcraft or something like that. So I had to kind of break back into Magic.
Oh,
So
wow.
my
So how did you
first,
do that? I mean, what was the process
I
for doing
worked on
that?
Dungeons and Dragons for a while, and then eventually I broke into Magic again, and that was for the core set 2010. So from there on, I've been consistent,
Right.
working on this on the game.
And what was the set for 2000, or what was the card that was sort of your back in the saddle kind of?
Yeah, it was Act of Treason. So
That's a good one.
the art director really liked that one, so I think that's how I started getting consistent work.
Now, you mentioned that you believe that the best art descriptions, and I agree with you. I would imagine that the best art descriptions are the ones that help tell a story rather than the ones that are overly detailed and box you artists in.
Yeah.
Which ones have you done in your career that you think you were like, oh, these are the best stories? Like, are there examples of the ones that you just were like, oh, I can take this and roll with it?
Yeah, I don't know. Well, it's always great with the Planeswalker ones is they do give you story, because a lot of times there's not a ton of story in the descriptions. They're just a couple sentences, but it's great when you have something like Venzer, the Sojourner, and just talking about how he's thinking about the war and he's just holding his helmet and looking off into the distance. That's a lot of fun to try to think about and try to get that right kind of feel and for the character. So those kind of ones work great, and plus there's usually a little bit of character design in those descriptions for the Planeswalkers, so those are a lot of fun to me.
Yeah, now that's interesting because I would have thought that because the Planeswalkers, because there is a sort of a preset of design and their costumes is determined, that would be, I mean, the trade-off is that you get to do a Planeswalker, which is, really awesome, but then you're kind of boxed in with the matter of dress. But that's interesting that you say
Well,
that.
not all the time. That's
Really?
Yeah, you're right, definitely right. For most, half of them, it's like that. But the other half, like even just to the degree of Venzer, where he had never been seen with his helmet off before. So I got to kind of design what that was like. And then there's ones like Tamio, who is a brand new character. So let's just go ahead and do whatever you want to a degree, aside from make sure it's from Kamigawa, and we want her to look, she has to look like an explorer as well as someone that is of high class. So try to mix those things together. And then Rails Eric as well. It was you just basically had to stick to that is it look to a degree, which I tried to tone down a little bit because it's so Fisher Price color wise, and so.
Sure.
But yeah, every once in a while, I mean, they're always going to give you some parameters, like all right, Rails Eric, he's got these little streaks of white in his hair, so you have to stick with that. But aside from that, there's a lot to explore.
Now, as far as I mean, I've looking at your stuff online. You do use models for your references, and sometimes it seems that you will even like base them heavily off of real people, correct?
Yeah, but they don't really end up looking like the models for the most part. But a lot of like there'll be certain features like, oh yeah, it definitely looks like her nose, or it definitely looks like her mouth, or so there'll be certain things I'll pick out and take, and other things I'll throw away and change up a little bit. Because a lot of times too is like I'll pose myself first. So if I have a model coming in, I'm not like wasting all kinds of time. So I can figure out what kind of lighting and get an idea where the camera should be and things like that. So sometimes I'll end up using the model and then a little bit of what I like from my little photo shoot. So and mix things together in my head.
Right, because the main thing was I saw Beguiler of Wills, and I was like that one looked very much like the model that posed for it.
Yeah, yeah.
And I find that interesting because I always wonder, how do you do that? Like, for instance, with all you've done, Venser several times, and how do you create? I mean, if you're creating a person out of nowhere, but there has to be some sort of like, I guess like similarities between them as it goes on, or does there? Is that something they really?
I don't know if they really need that, because there's too many artists that work on the same character, and it's impossible for them to have these characters be that detailed and look that consistent throughout. So there's always going to be some variation. Because even when I've done like Avenger 3 times, and I can't say that he looks the exact same, So well, I try my best, but that's really hard to do.
Yeah, especially it seems like it.
Have the original model that you shot, So like Venser, I think I had, for maybe I had the same model for 2 of them, but not for the other. So something like that.
Gotcha.
Same thing with Eric. I feel like. No, that's true. I had him both times. So.
Another interesting one that I would like to discuss is Olivia Voldaren. Now, I have a like sort of theory. I mean, even if it's not true, I'm convinced of it anyway. But I see Tori Amos with the original Olivia Voldaren. I don't know if that.
You're not the first person to say that. So I don't know if it's color or what, or what it is.
It's crazy. There's a cover that she did for this album called Midwinter Graces, where she's floating in the air, and it's eerie. It came out right around the same time, and so I was like, well, I wonder if there was a basis for that, but it sounds like it isn't. But it is. It's truly it's eerie how similar they look.
That's funny. I think it was my wife that posed for that one.
Oh, really? Okay. But with Olivia Voldaren, what's also I found very interesting is when you did Olivia, the sequel for Olivia, what was it? Something for Battle.
Mobilized for War.
Mobilized for War. Thank you. I suck out loud. She is now. What's interesting there is, and now maybe this is me just. I mean, this is purely speculation. I don't know if this is true, but she looks to be almost like it would be a model who is from maybe Asian descent in it. And I was curious, did you use a model for that one, or what was the creation process behind that?
No, I think a lot of my characters kind of come out like that naturally.
Really? That's interesting. So you
go with it.
So you just start and then create the mind from like you just create it from like sort of just your mind. I mean, that blows my mind.
No. I mean, I have a model too, but I'm not looking at it that intently. Where every little detail. So sometimes things just like come out a certain way, and I just have a tendency to have that type of look with the characters I do.
I mean, interesting behind the scenes stuff for you as far as the stories go, but like for instance, the Withengar story, which I think is a really cool one. I would love to hear you tell that one.
Oh yeah, I think that was one where sometimes you have these ideas for a card, and this is another one where I kind of just probably add a little more story to it in my head than was necessarily there. And I kind of wanted so one side's a big creature, and the other side is like a knife or a dagger or something like that. And I thought it'd be cool if it was the creature's finger, cut off. So, and then, basically it was the claw was shaped into a knife or whatever, like that. And so they really liked the idea, but then eventually came back and said, well, this creature needs to be like the size of a building. So, it's not really going to work, because then it's just the size doesn't work anymore as far as like, that would be a really huge knife.
Yeah, right. Like a 70-foot long scythe or
Yeah,
something.
exactly. So yeah, it just didn't really work anymore. So I kind of had to change it. But yeah, so in the original sketch, you could see the creature and his hand was like missing a finger. So it was kind of a cool thing but just didn't end up working out because of the mechanic of the card.
As far as I know that you've said that the easiest pieces for you to do, I'd love to know some of them. I know you've talked about it before, but I like the juxtaposition of like what was the easiest ones from start to finish that you've done.
A lot of times it's ones where the character is in front of like maybe a forest or something like that, where I just instantly know what the color scheme is going to be. It's not like what's behind you, where there's like really complicated architecture.
Yeah.
That just have to like sit there and use all the geometry that I learned in high school, to try to figure out.
Nuts. It's nuts.
So it has a lot to do with that.
Were you good in math in school?
Yeah. I always liked math and science, so I don't mind doing that kind of stuff where I'm laying out all kinds of vanishing points and I'm trying to figure out the center of a square and in perspective and move that back and forth, and I don't mind doing that stuff. It's just so time consuming.
Right.
Yeah.
I wonder if that's a prerequisite for doing stuff like that. That's the piece behind me. If you have to be good at math, because I'm terrible at math. I mean, we're talking like serious disability, and so
I think the smart people use 3D. So I did not. I probably should have just sat down and spent like a week learning 3D, and then it wouldn't have taken me a month and a half to do. So.
Really? Okay, so you just taught now. Do you teach yourself that along the way? You just sit down and you're like, I'm going to learn 3D. It seems like that's pretty.
I should have.
But you didn't do it?
No, I didn't do it. If I was saying like, for the Ravnica scene behind you, had I just learned 3D, I probably could have saved myself a lot of time. Instead, It took a month and a half to do that piece. Luckily, it was a very important piece, so I could put that kind of time into it. But
Now, it was a digital piece, right?
Yes, yeah.
So you had to go back and paint Ral Zarek out of it.
They asked me because they liked the background so much that they wanted to use it for a planes card, and luckily I'd already kind of painted a lot behind him anyways, so it wasn't really that bad. I pulled him; he was already on a layer. I pulled him off, and then I just kind of had to like finish up the buildings behind him. It wasn't too bad. So
okay, because I was going to say that would have caused me to seize up. It's like you do this like month-long thing, and they're like, "Can we get more of that?" And you'd be like,
yeah. No, it wasn't that bad. Yeah, because a lot of times you need to just kind of see how the buildings, he's in the way, and I want to make sure that I'm drawing the buildings correctly. So I would kind of think, get rid of them for a little bit and make sure that everything's correct. So I already had a little bit of the work done behind him.
Now, you've done a lot of really high-profile planeswalkers. You're definitely you've got your hand in the Garruk like lineage. But you say that you're one of the ones you're most proud of is the Ajani one you did. Now, that seems like that would be a really tricky thing to do. The way you have to anthropomorphize and bring human features to basically a lion. It seems like that would be a really difficult thing to achieve. The right balance. Am I wrong with that?
Yeah, no, it's really hard. It's well, at least for me it is. And because sometimes I just think it looks goofy when you have like the humanoid body and then like the head looks just exactly like a lion. It just can look a little. So you have to find like a balance between shrinking that muzzle a little bit so it's a little bit closer to a humanoid. And so I had done that planeswalker first, and I was happy with it, and so I handed it in. Then I had to do a secondary card of him, but it wasn't a planeswalker. It was
it Solidarity Heroes or
a Johnny's Welcome?
A Johnny's Welcome.
Yeah. So I had worked on him again, and I felt like I got better at drawing him. So I went and asked the art director if I could update the Planeswalker, and I hadn't been that much time, so I don't think that they had sent it in to be printed or anything like that. So after doing the Johnny's Welcome, I kind of looked at what I did, and I kind of updated that once to be something that I was even more happy with. So I handed that in. So, and the art director Cynthia was really cool about it.
Yeah, because the Johnny's Welcome, it's actually astonishing because he has his hand out like right in front, and it's got just enough elements of the cat to it, like it's rounder and kind of like the way a paw would be, but yet it has the fingers like of a human. So I can see that.
Yeah.
Was that something you were talking about, like where you take?
I spent a lot of time trying to get those hands right because I wanted it. I didn't want it to look like just regular human hands. They needed to be really big. So I went and I looked up arm wrestlers because I figured they just have these massive meat hooks, and I found a couple shots of a guy where he kind of had his hands not exactly how they are in that picture, but just a good example, and you could really see what some fat fingers look like, and so then I took that and kind of exaggerated a little bit and tried to give it like a softer, furry kind of feel to it. But I feel like that extra little bit of research made a difference.
That's fascinating stuff. That's the stuff that I love about talking to you guys, is sort of the little like Easter eggs. And what Planeswalker that you haven't done would you love to take a crack at? Would there be one that you haven't done that you just would? I mean, you've done pretty much a lot of them, but is there one that has slipped through your grasp?
I've kind of always wanted to do like a Jace Planeswalker. I mean, I've drawn him and painted him a number of times, but I wanted to do an actual Planeswalker card of him, just because he's like kind of the face of the game. I just always wanted to do him, but I haven't had that opportunity.
Well, yeah, we'll put that out there. We'll be like, if anyone's listening, but it's one of the things.
I had an opportunity not too long ago to kind of help like tweak his costume to a degree with some concept art, so I kind of wanted to use that as well. So it'd be kind of fun.
That's another thing I was curious about. So you've been on a few of the concept art teams for the game throughout the years. When do you make that transition to do that? How do they approach you and say, "Oh, we'd like you to do this"? And what are some of the elements that you bring to the table when you're doing something like that?
Well, I've technically only done it once, and
okay.
I've done stuff, plenty of concept art for them from home, just like one or two little things. But as far as like a full, set, I've only done that once. I did that for Theros, and so it was a long time ago. I feel like I do a much better job now, but because I was probably a little intimidated at the time, and and there's certain skill set that I didn't necessarily have at the time where. I know that now I'd be able to kind of draw on the fly, which I really wasn't that equipped to do at the time, because you just develop as an artist, and I wasn't really ready for that at the time. But I did my best. It was tricky. It was a really hard job, and I'd love to try it again sometime, because I know that, especially now that I've done a lot more children's books where I'm drawing multiple pages of almost like not sequential, but a lot of the same characters over and over again in different poses, and just doing it out of my head, which I just couldn't do at the time. So
now that you mentioned that, that is something I wanted to talk about with the children's book. So you have you're pretty prolific with the covers that you've been doing and the illustrations. I wanted to know, I just wanted to say first off, the Monster Missions cover is absolutely terrifying. I mean, I think it might be the scariest piece I've seen you do, because just that image of it's New York City, it's underwater, and it's just, there's this giant sea creature. It's oh my God, it's my worst fears. Like I had the ocean, don't like it.
Yeah, no, that's a lot of fun. I did not know how I was going to do that, because it's not something you can research very well. You can't find a building is going to look like underwater, So it just took a lot of experimentation and some time to try to figure out something that looked good. And it's like one of those things too. You're constantly battling realism versus making a nice cover, because in real life you would hardly see anything,
Right.
Because the water just it's just so murky and dark. And so you have to find a way where it doesn't just look like a blue washed sky, you know, and it has to kind of feel like it's underwater. So that was tricky. It was, I think it came out pretty good though.
Oh, it's great. I mean, it truly is. I don't think it's not on purposefully. It's not purposefully terrifying. It's just the idea of Manhattan being underwater
Yeah.
is a scary notion, and then the fact that it looked. I mean, I feel like that's what it would look like if you had, you know, like a way to look at it. It's truly great. The depth of it, and it's just you have those two girls just like chatting, and I'm thinking to myself like, oh man, I would be crap in my wetsuit. It would I'd be beyond. It would be terrible. It'd be a big old mess. Now,
Thanks.
as far as getting into children's books illustrations, how did that happen? Where was that presented to you, and how did that shift come about?
At some point, I got a request from well, I've been wanting to do, you know, young adult middle grade covers for a while. And at some point, I got a message from this French company, French book publisher, and they had wanted to make the French version of this series called Stream Street.
Mm-hmm.
And so I did, I don't know, like 6 or 7 covers for them. And that was it was stressful because there's a huge language barrier, and trying to communicate back and forth with them was really difficult. And but getting through it, it was worth it because those covers really pushed me into getting a lot of work for middle grade. And well, basically, I used to say young adult, but it's actually middle grade covers.
They have a great the few of them are again they're just so great. They're so imaginative. Is the one where the girl is in the mummy sort of set up with the spider web. That's just inspired stuff. I mean, you can't go.
Thanks. That was hard because I was doing that one while I was at that Theros concept push. So I like coming in, I was bringing my my work into the Wizards studio kind of like after hours and working there and trying to get it done. So
that must have been difficult.
Hard. Well, you know what was nice though? I'd never used a Cintiq before, so that was freeing. You know, so I was always used to using the Wacom tablet that's down below, and you know, and you're looking up at the screen. So they had the Cintiqs, which are the screens that you can just use your pen right onto. And so I was at least excited to use that, and you know, I kind of feel like that pushed me through a little bit faster. And then, of course, when I got home, I had to get one, and I haven't gone back since.
Nice. So I guess I'm a total like cretin. I'm like I thought it was a stylist. I'm like I guess it learns there's other words for things.
Oh yeah. The actual monitor is called a Cintiq, and you use a stylus on it.
Okay, I gotcha.
But you also can just have the ones where you're not like working right on the screen. You're looking up at the screen, and the stylus is down below on your tabletop. So there's 2 different ways to go. One's the cheaper, you know, version, and one's like the higher tech version.
Now, how do you feel? I know you've spoken about this before, but I'm interested to see, as far as digital versus traditional, if you were to give you know, some thoughts on how a painter should come up, and as far as training goes, what would they be in regards to those mediums?
Oh, I think that you should do the trick. You should not do what I did. You should go the traditional route first, and then pepper in your digital stuff from there.
I'm sorry.
I you know, had some general art training in college, but most of my training was after, and I kind of pushed myself straight into the digital work because I was getting a little antsy and felt like the only way I was going to get to where I needed to be fast enough was going to be to work on a computer. So yeah, because I started a little bit late, because a lot of people I knew that got into illustration, you know, got into illustration before or just after college, and I did it like, I don't know, maybe around when I was 30 or so, you know. So, you know, I felt like I was behind, which was kind of silly, and now I don't even think about it anymore.
Right. Yeah. There's sort of that pressure that I think society puts on people. And I've talked to like for instance, like Hugh Pinder, he got started very late. And I think that now people are realizing that like it's not going to be like you don't have an expiration date as far as
No,
your talent, you know? And
no,
I know there's probably the pressure obviously of to make a living and to support yourself and a family, but
yeah,
there is the ability to become successful in the industry at a different time. You don't have to be like out of the gate and out of school. It helps, but it's not some like death sentence that they used to paint it
no,
as.
no, I don't think so. Yeah, exactly. You're right.
Yeah, it seems like it. So tell me about Digby. I find that very interesting. I wanted to know a little bit about how that came about.
Well, hopefully, what we're talking about before, where you don't have to start, it's not too late to start, So now I'm trying to learn how to write. So I've been spending a lot of time, a lot of side time doing that, and that's where going out to Magic the Gathering events, those things like that, were giving me an income that could help me um, put a little bit of time aside to be able to learn how to practice writing and things like that. So Digby was a basically a practice story for me to do that. So I wrote a novel from beginning to end, completely finished it, and happy with it. But it was really just supposed to be a practice run. But now I like it, so it may actually do something with it. So it's basically just a couple, a little family of badger-like creatures that are having some adventures around a forest, and there's magic involved, and one of them gets kind of sucked into another secondary world, and the one brother has to figure out a way to communicate with him, and finds out his grandfather had tinkered with magic and starts using that a little bit, and it's I got a lot of cool little creatures and things like that worked into it, and so it's fun. It was fun to write, and I brought actually even a few different younger stories as well. So I'm just trying everything.
Yeah, it seems like you would be also really good for like young children illustration books because of the way you are able to. I mean, you have such a diversity in your work, but you can do that really cute, colorful, bold stuff that children are instantly drawn to.
Yeah, I
It
mean that may be what I'm most naturally do, but sometimes I think just because that's what you you're most naturally drawn to doesn't mean that that's what you're best at. Maybe I'm best at doing like magic type stuff, and even though it's not my total wheelhouse, I don't know, just sometimes I feel like sometimes if you're so into something, you can maybe not produce the best quality material in it. I don't know. Sometimes you ever like watch like there's like a movie, and then like the director is just so into it, and then it doesn't come out that great because they're just such a fan. So sometimes you bring in a director that's not really is not really into Star Wars that much, but then brings like a whole new kind of approach to it. And I think that can happen sometimes. So that's why I like to mix things up and see what happens, and try. I'll try things for early readers, and I'll try things for middle grade, and I'll try things for magic, and just kind of see what happens and see
I
what I
mean,
can bring.
I don't know if I would describe anything that you've done that I've seen as poor quality, though. I mean, it's just simply not. Maybe your interpretation is not it's not the best you could do, or you think you could have done better. But I haven't seen. There's some artists where you see maybe the really early work, and you're like, oh, they've grown a lot since then. Whereas you were, at least from what I can see, you were knocking them out of the park from the get go.
Well, thank you. But as artists, we're always thinking that what we're doing, you always see the holes and the flaws in it. So it's hard not to do that. And it's hard not to see, what you're not good at. But as I get older, I start realizing that you kind of need to embrace those things to a degree, you know, and see what you can do with your limitations. And
What would
sometimes
you,
turn into a style in itself.
what do you think that your limitations are? What are some things that you think that you're not good at?
Well, I definitely, I struggle with more of like really dark and brooding gothic kind of stuff. You know, there's some subtleties, and when we're trying to do like really low contrast, moody pieces, those are difficult for me. There's a lot of stuff, but you know,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, there's always so much to learn when it comes to art, and learning, doing like cool poses, and you know, just the human anatomy and things like. You just can never stop learning.
Mm-hmm. Like well, I mean, I will say that for as far as like gothic or moody, Worst Fears is it's incredible. The with Elspeth like just being kind of just like just surrounded by these nightmarish things. I was wondering, were you? I was wondering if you were maybe making a reference to John Carpenter's The Thing, where there is the wolves and the tendrils. I just sort of kind of got that vibe. I was wondering if that was sort of a reference to that, or if that was something that was already decided in the description.
No, not at all. I was never really a horror guy. I never grew up on much of that kind of stuff. So no, not at all. I just kind of, I think it was probably one of those things where I knew it needed to be kind of moody, so I did my best to try to give the a really limited color palette, which is, you know, I feel like I've gotten a little bit better of it over time, but for the longest time, it was a huge challenge for me to do anything that wasn't just full blown color, you know, local color. So, you know.
Yeah, it's great. I love it. I think it definitely doesn't. I mean, I don't know if you've seen The Thing, but there's a scene in it where the wolf, it's about an organism that whenever it kills something, it takes on the form of whatever life form it is killed. So it has like all these, you know, different types of things that are inside of it. And there's this one scene where it shapeshifts into a wolf with these flapping tendrils. And I just saw it and I was like, whoa, that looks a lot like the creature. It's an eerie synchronicity.
Fun.
With Charnika, I hope I'm pronounced that correctly. You painted Gideon's statue in the background. I saw. Now, I love those Easter eggs. Are there any Easter eggs that you've done that people maybe have not caught on to throughout?
Aside from that one, that's a good question. I think I'm always scared to throw in Easter eggs and then get in trouble for it. You know, so.
Oh, really? You mean?
Well, I mean, I don't want there to be, because you never know where the story's going, you know, and I just don't want to throw it off and mess with it too much. So, you know, I don't usually. Wait, I mean, if I have like a really good idea, I'll do it, but I have to make sure I you know, contact the art director and find out if it's okay. But you know, it's not something that happens very often. I can't even really think of one off the top of my head of things that I've hidden in there on purpose. I don't think I ever really.
Because Easter eggs are awesome. I think fans, from speaking from a fan point of view, we love them. Like we live for them. I love it, and I would say if you ever have one pop in, like just at least ask about it because there's so much fun. Like they reward people who pay attention.
Yeah. Maybe I'm just not. Maybe I don't know the game well enough then. Or maybe.
Well, I mean that's debatable, but one thing that I thought was really cool is you actually had one of your pieces has now inspired its own sequel, The Fatal Push. How cool was that when you found out that there was going to be like sort of a different POV of what you originally designed?
Tell me what you're talking about.
Okay, yeah. So I don't know if you've seen it, but there is, and we can cut this up. But you know, the Fatal Push that you did, they did it. It's the exact same scenario, except it's from the guy falling. It's from beneath him falling off the ship. He's been pushed off, and he's like, it's only his back is to the camera, and he's falling from the ship. And as far as sequels go, you've done, you know, you've done Purpose. Are there Are the challenges of doing the sequel, are they fun, or do you generally like get nervous when you have to do them because of their higher stakes, I guess, when you're doing them?
I mean, I'm usually hesitant to do them to a degree because you've already shown this character in what you think is the best way you can, and now it's go ahead, do it again. It's like, oh man, what am I going to do this time? So that can be really tricky. Or sometimes it's not even your own work. Sometimes I'll have to do something that Tyler Jacobson did. I had to do Chandra's parents, and he already did a really cool painting of them. So so I just thought, all right, well, he did this really cool kind of action pose with them back to back. I'll try to do something intimate.
Yeah.
So I more intimate shot of the two of them. So
It's a beautiful piece.
If you can think of a new concept and mix it up, it helps a lot.
That's interesting.
But unlike, when I did Perforos, that was tricky because they just pretty much wanted the same kind of thing. And so that was hard. So I had to figure out a second way to do it.
But you did a great job with it. You sort of did like this kind of interesting take where he's emerging and then he's bringing it down.
Yeah.
See, I feel like you're good at sequels.
Thanks. Trying. I tried to just zoom in on him a little bit, so maybe we get a little bit more view of him. So I think that helps a little bit.
Is there one that you would like to do a sequel to that you were doing the piece and you're like, oh, that I could do even more?
I'd like to do Eva. What's her full name? Oh crap! But she was she's this elf with a bear that has some barding on it, and Nature's Herald. Eva.
Okay.
Nature's
Yes.
Herald. And that would be really cool.
What I mean, should I that one that makes you feel, oh, I could do it? I mean, do you have any ideas already, or I mean?
Oh no, I haven't thought of any ideas yet. I just liked her character design, and I wanted to kind of just do it again. And I do love the fact that she has this bear that she's buddies with, and I'd like to show that off in some way, some more, which was really hard because I remember trying to design a bear with a barding on it, and it's just they're so cute, like the bears, because they have little round ears, and no matter what I did, it just looks so cute. So I had to really start slimming it down as much as possible because it didn't look imposing, So it was a fun challenge.
Yeah, that's an interesting point you make, because unless like a bear is on its haunches, like getting ready to attack, it's just basically cute when it's in its resting pose.
Yeah. And something about the little round ears is just, if they're sticking out. And if you get rid of them, then it doesn't look as much like a bear. So
right. So what you did was sort of make it looks like the bear's sort of like mid step. So it's looking downward, and it's but it works. It's definitely, you get the size of it. It's humongous, and she sees you, which is it implies to the viewer like, don't mess with me. This guy is one of my buddies. So
Yep.
Now, are there ways to, like, let's say if there was like a card that came up that was a green card that required just a generic whatever action, say elf does something in this card. I don't know how it goes, but is there a way that like you can sort of say to the creative team, be like, oh, hey, I have this idea of maybe doing this. Is that something that they are open to? Is that something you can possibly bring to the table yourself?
Well, I don't think I've ever gotten a card that was open-ended like that.
I see.
Where I feel like, any suggestion I would have, kind of like Eva would make sense for. Usually they're very specific, and you can tell that there's some, story that they have going on around it. So yeah, the opportunity just never really shows itself.
What was the story for Barter for Blood with Soren? That one I find interesting because I'm curious to know what the setup was for that.
That one I did such a long time ago. I have no idea.
It will be forever remain a mystery.
I know he's just kind of like cursing everyone, and they're all kind of dropping dead as he's walking through. But I don't remember what the story was. I'm sure there was. I'm sure there was. I just don't remember it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
because
that
it's
was
interesting because
yeah,
Soren's supposed to be sort of like the one who looks out for humans, and it looks like he's just like just tearing through
yeah.
people.
Does look like he's just plaguing people, and they're just dropping like flies. Yeah,
That's awesome. I plague
that's how I
thee.
remember it, at least. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe he's like helping them up, but I don't think so.
No, no, I don't think so. I definitely think there's some plaguifying going on there for sure.
Yeah.
Um, Now, one like I won't keep you for too much longer, but I would like to know as far as artists that you have been sort of molded by, who are some artists that you find to be a big source of inspiration for you and have influenced your personal work?
Oh, definitely Jim Henson. That's like a huge thing for me. I absolutely loved the Dark Crystal, and then just all the Muppets in general. They're just I love the diversity of the look of them, and like I loved how they were so colorful, but like kind of like dirty and grungy. At least the original Muppets at the same time. And it
Mhm.
always bothered me as like um, years went on, and now I'm an adult, and like they show Kermit out, and he's like bright pink, he's like bright green, and like what Miss Piggy's just bright pink. Like everyone's so clean, and they used to be just these grungy puppets, and I kind of
Yeah,
miss that. But
that's a good point.
so, but yeah, I know. So Star Wars, of course, and those kind of things. Those are a big influence, and um, but yeah, but like specific artists, I just look at a lot of different things, but I can't say that there was one that was such a huge influence on me or anything like that. But there's so many that I look to in general, though. But most of my influence, I feel like, was like movies and comics and things like that.
Jim Henson was an incredibly talented guy. I mean, it's such a shame that he died so young. But
Yeah,
one thing that you pointed out, like, and that's very insightful. They were grungier, and it worked better, I think, because
so
they
too.
they looked like the animals they were supposed to be. Frogs are not supposed to be pristine. Pigs are pigs. Like there should be an element of like grunge to them.
I mean, even their personalities when Jim Henson was doing it, Kermit was a little bit of a dick, you
He was.
know.
He
So
was.
now he's like this, So it's
And
now
the
wait,
Fraggles
wait.
too were awesome. I loved
Oh
them
yeah,
as a little kid.
absolutely
Loved them.
love. The trash heap, that was so cool.
Did you ever hear there was this story? I remember, I'll never forget it, but it was the Fraggle Rock, and it was called The Story of the Poison Cackler. And it was so dark. There was this like thing that lived in the caves that was eating Fraggles called the Poison Cackler. And
Okay,
whenever you heard it laugh, that meant it was too late. It would start to
really?
cackle, and then that means you're dead. And I was like,
Hmm.
that was so scary, like
That's
so
funny. I don't
scary.
remember specifically, but I'm sure I saw it.
It's he wasn't afraid to go down sort of that dark road. I wonder if he had like sort of like an event where he gone even darker and maybe done like they wouldn't have allowed it at the time, but nowadays I could see like a rated R Muppet style
Yeah, yeah,
feature would work.
yeah.
Have
Man,
you
I
ever
don't think
done anything like that?
I don't think that he. When you think of Jim Henson stuff, everyone thinks it's for kids, but I don't think that was ever really his intention. So I think that he was kind of geared towards doing, kid stuff, but his heart was a little bit more in doing adult stories.
Yeah, he had a dark heart, and he was able to slip that. Well, that's what made the old stuff good, was watching
Yeah,
that. It was
yeah,
entertaining for the adults too.
exactly. Yeah,
Like the new stuff, I have a 3-year-old niece, and the new stuff, I'm just like, "Mm."
yeah,
It's
it's okay.
yeah, it'll test you.
Yeah.
One final question that I thought was that I wanted to ask about was the cover for Little Apocalypse. Now I know I'm totally conspiracy theorying out on you, but the way the one power lines fell down, it looks like a cross, and I was like, is that like sort of a reference to like the like actual apocalypse story, like the?
I don't even. Let's see. Have that one over here. No, if that's the case, it wasn't intentional.
Yeah, I should start.
Now I have to go look at the cover.
No, I mean it's cool. I can cut it out, but yeah, it's really it's interesting because I looked it up and I was like, well, maybe it was for like maybe it seemed unlikely, but maybe it was done for a religious press. And I looked it up and I was like, no, that's not it. And I thought, well, that's clever. I mean, it's
Looks like
certainly
an
not.
Does it look like an upside down cross like on your shirt, or a regular up and
No,
down?
no, it looks like a not dark one.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't be someone that would be throwing a cross on there for, unless I was asked. I'm not really a religious person, so.
Yeah, no, I didn't think that you were, but I just thought maybe it was kind of like like, I mean, the apocalypse did happen in the Bible, so it just
Oh, yeah.
it seemed like a clever, like, sort of like reference to it.
No, not intentionally. We'll pretend that I did, though. How's
All
that?
right, well, for the record, yeah, totally did that, and that's the
Thank
Easter
you.
eggs everywhere. I could just I'll just write you a list of where the Easter eggs are in your pieces because I had
Yeah,
so
there we
many
go. And
theories.
I start writing about them and be like, oh yeah, I meant to do that.
Yeah, because I'll send you the images of what I'm talking about, so I don't sound like a total crazy person.
No.
And I swear I will argue my points. I was so convinced too. I was like, oh, I gotta be right on these, and it was just like fail, fail, fail.
Oh, it's always interesting to see what people see in your own artwork, and how people see it a different way. And people always see like celebrities in what you do, and what I do. I mean, so I'm like, oh, is this supposed to be Justin Bieber? I'm like, oh no, no,
I
that's
mean,
Elspeth. Sorry,
oh shit, dude. I feel like
but you just have to. You just have. It's not a big deal,
of all the
It's fun.
celebrities that you could pick, I always thought this was happening because I really do see so much of storylines in your pieces. There is, and I can see why you're actually kind of that you took that shift to becoming, a writer, because
Mhm.
there is that element where I see you evolving, building worlds in your pieces, and that's sort of a natural progression. And there's so much going on in it. I mean, and I guess it seems like it's unintentional from your stance, but I see so much of it. And being a writer myself, I'm like, this is somebody who understands narrative, and you have a
Yeah,
better grasp of it than say some people who are just maybe purely action or purely like doing poses. There's different types of strengths that different
yeah,
artists have, and I think that one of yours is definitely inserting narratives into it.
yeah. Oh, thanks. Appreciate it. I mean, I really enjoy the narrative part, and I had a ton of fun. I don't know why I just thought of this one because it's old, but I had to do a cover for a Magic the Gathering comic, and it was Dak Faden, and he's kind of stealing a necklace from this woman,
Mm-hmm.
and I had a ton of fun trying to figure out a way to kind of tell that story in a subtle way, and that was I really enjoy that kind of stuff when there's an action happening, because usually I do struggle sometimes with when Magic come to me and they say, okay, we want a movie poster for this set, and I'm like, I don't want to do that, because I'd rather tell a story rather than having, okay, here's this cool character and this cool character, and they're all just kind of looking at us,
Mm-hmm.
So, but
It's
those can be tough.
is now I don't know the background of Dak's like hand, but I believe it's he's got a red right hand, right? And it,
Yeah, he was caught red-handed.
yeah, it's is that what that's a
Yeah,
reference
that
to?
was right. Whoever came up with Dak Faden, that was basically the idea there. I think it was actually wasn't the Magic team that came up with the idea for Dak. I think he was the IDW was their creation, I think, and
Mm-hmm.
then design what he looked like. So
Yeah,
yeah,
the
but
cover
yeah,
you
they
did is awesome,
had the idea of him having the red hand and everything. So yeah,
and he's breaking the
but yeah,
fourth wall too. He's
what's
sort
that?
of like he's looking at the viewer with sort of like he's making kind of like a little bit of a joke out of it, which is
Yeah,
great.
too easy.
Like he's like, can you believe this lady?
Yeah.
Kind of look.
Oh,
It's a
that's
great
another
look.
thing where people, always look at that one. Oh, is that Liliana? I'm like, why? Because he has dark hair and a purple dress? Yeah.
Oh, you got it. That is definitely Liliana because that's exactly how Liliana would act as a character. She's
Yeah.
definitely a wooing, you know. Oh,
Yeah.
I just can't stand up. I'm so faint from having battled Garuk and cursing him. You know,
Exactly.
that's funny. Yeah, that's yeah. Like when I was talking to Magali Villeneuve, she was saying like everyone kept saying that Sarah was Shakira, and she's like, no, not Shakira. So
Definitely
it's
not.
Yeah, right. Well, before I let you go, I wanted to know, is there anything that you're working on now that you would like to discuss or that you're able to discuss um, in the upcoming, future?
Yeah, I don't really have anything I probably can discuss, but so what I'm working on right now, when I'm done with this, I have a early reader book that um, I'm doing like I think 6 books of, and so they're short books, and I get to do the covers, and I'm doing all the interiors too, which are all um, you know basically pencil with some ink wash, and so I get to kind of illustrate the story on the interiors as well, which is going to be a lot of fun. So it's got some dragons in it, so it's cool. So
And I
hopefully,
know, I'm sorry, go on.
hopefully that'll be out in the next year or two. So I'm excited for that to be coming to the world. But I don't know if I can say the name of it or anything yet.
Right, right. And I know you can't give away any specifics, but how many cards do you have in the workings for Magic, as far as the count of how many you're working on now that will be for future releases?
Well, I usually for each, they do kind of like give us artwork in waves, and usually I'll take on 2 for each wave. So that usually amounts to like 3 to 4 cards per set. I've been working on. So, but now there's so many Magic sets, so it's kind of hard. I can't say, oh, I have like about 3 in each set, because you never know which set your work is actually in. So because there's so many more where oh, I didn't even do anything for that set. Oh
Right.
man, I want to work on that. So.
I was actually, and that actually, the one last question I wanted to ask you was, in an interview in 2014, somebody asked you what your favorite piece was, and you said, my favorite one is the one I just completed yesterday. I can't tell you anything about it. I was wondering what that piece was.
2014.
Yeah.
Huh.
So I
Maybe
believe it would have come out in 2015, I'd imagine. I'd imagine that if you just.
When did that Johnny one come out?
I'm thinking it was then, because that might have been it. But I was curious to know, like, if it's so.
Probably that.
That's great. That's great. It's great stuff, and I appreciate you taking the time. And I'm sorry for all my weirdo conspiracy theories.
No, they're
swear,
not weird at all. They're fun.
like, I was just like, swing and a miss, swing and a miss, swing and a miss. Well, thank you again.
You're welcome.
All right, have a good day.
You too.
And there you have it. Eric is definitely one of the artists I took notice to when I began playing Magic, and it was an honor to have him on. With that being said, I must go because I have something from Uvenwald Eats being delivered soon, and we'll speak of the devil. Dinner time. As always, I'm Alper Markov, this is Concepts and Legends, and until next time, I got a scoop.